Gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air on a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. Thursday, February 20th. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. We appreciate it. Things are going well when it comes to Off the Air. We're excited about it. We appreciate everyone who's watched this week, who's watched in the past, who's watching right now. Of course, if you'd like to be watching, or if you are watching, we thank you on YouTube. We are live on YouTube throughout the morning. And of course, you can go back and watch the shows in the past as well on YouTube. So we want to thank you for subscribing on YouTube. We're also live on X. We started that this week, and it's been really, really good. So we appreciate it if you're on X and you're listening to us on X. We appreciate that as well. We are also up on all of the podcasting platforms as well. So right after the show, about 20 minutes after the show gets wrapped up, you will see this show up on all the podcasting platforms. And I always say it's better to listen sometimes than to watch because quite frankly, I'm not much to look at. Neither are most of my guests, and I say that with much love. So if you want to check us out on the podcasting platforms, please do that as well. We are super excited for today's show. A lot to get to. My first guest I'm really excited about. I've been tracking him down all week because on Monday he put out a great article in the Des Moines Register and in the Iowa City Press Citizen. Chad Leistikow, one of the best beat writers for the Iowa Beat, put out a really interesting article on the future of Iowa basketball, the decisions that Beth Goetz has to make, and kind of really laid them out in a great way. Kind of showed both sides of things, what Fran has done, his accomplishments, how much he's owed, all those kind of things, and then what would the alternative be as we get ready to wrap up the season for Iowa basketball. Also, we'll talk to him about last night as well. The Iowa Hawkeyes dropping a tough one at Oregon, or I should say at Carver Hawkeye Arena against Oregon. And when you look at it, Iowa, great effort as always. We'll talk about that. Not enough to get over the hump at Carver Hawkeye Arena in a game that several breaks did go their way. It kind of felt like Iowa was going to figure out a way to win that game. They end up losing by 2. Josh Dix with a chance to win it with a 3 at the end, but that one was blocked by the big 7-footer for Oregon, and the Ducks escape with victory. So a lot to unpack, a lot to get to with Chad Leistikow, and I got a lot of buddies that cover the Iowa Beat. Chad right now is so locked in. His article was fantastic. So we'll be joined by him in just a matter of moments. Also on today's show, the Western Big Six was buzzing on Tuesday night. Several interesting final scores, including one at the Rock Garden where the Rock Island Rocks, who have been really good all season, knocked off conference unbeaten, and conference champion Quincy on Tuesday night. So a big victory for Rock Island as they wrap up the regular season. They'll get ready for the regionals coming up next week. That'll be at Moline, where you got Moline, UT, Pekin, and Rock Island all funneling into Wharton Fieldhouse. Should be an amazing week of basketball next week on the high school level. Marc Polite will join us, a repeat guest, the first coach that's come on twice. Marc Polite will be along and coming up in just a little bit as well. And also good news last night for Monmouth College and their basketball program. The Fighting Scots are conference champions. They win the MWC. They get it outright. They won last night. Their standout junior guard, Kyle Taylor, former Moline standout, will be on the show in hour number 2 to talk about Monmouth College, their success, his fit down in Monmouth. We'll also talk to him about his old man a little bit and the basketball family that is the Taylors. Of course, his dad, Sean Taylor, the head coach at Moline. Also the just recently won 700 career games and the winningest coach in Western Big Six history. So a lot to get to with Kyle Taylor. I'm excited about that. Hour number 2 of the show as well. If you missed any of our shows this week, we've had a busy week here on Off the Air. Yesterday, I should say, breaking a little news. The John Deere Classic welcoming the Zach Brown Band on Sunday for their concerts on the chorus. Of course, Andrew Lehman was here at 11 o'clock yesterday to announce that that announcement, to unveil that announcement. See if I can get my English a little better this morning. So go check out Andrew. We talked a lot about the John Deere Classic, the concerts on the course, the field and how that's shaping up, the vibe that he's getting. We also talked Iowa basketball with Andrew Lehman as well, one of the biggest Iowa basketball fans that I've ever met. So great to have Andrew on the show. Check that out from yesterday as well. Also, several other great guests yesterday, including Taylor Jackson from Sterling as well, the Sterling Golden Warriors Western Big Six champion. So check out Wednesday's show. Also on this week, Glenn Cook, Jess Settles, Pat Angerer. That's just to name a few. So go check out Monday. That was Jess and Pat. Glenn Cook was on Tuesday with several others. And, of course, Wednesday, Andrew Lehman, Taylor Jackson, and so much more. So a lot has happened this week. If you need to catch up with the show, we'd love for you to do that. Make sure you're subscribing to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Well, we talked about it at the top of the show. The Iowa basketball team with a tough loss last night at Carver Hawkeye Arena. They got a great effort from Peyton Sanford, got a great effort from Josh Dix. Evan Bronze comes off the bench, plays the most minutes of his career, scored 15 points, a really good story for him, but Iowa came up just short in that one. Also, other college basketball last night, Jordan Delps won 3 out of 4 games. Augustana has won 3 out of 4 games since coming on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. I'm not taking full credit because sometimes that bites me in the butt the other way around, but Augustana with a big victory last night. They knocked off Wheaton, I believe, 101-76. So they look like they could get themselves into that CCIW conference tournament. That's the first step, the first goal, and then see what the Vikings do after that. So congratulations to the Augustana men. And as we mentioned yesterday, or I should say earlier in the show, it was a big night last night for Monmouth College. The Fighting Scots winning at home. They are your MWC champions. As we mentioned, we will have Kyle Taylor, standout guard from Monmouth College, coming up in just a little bit as well. But we do start with the Iowa Hawkeyes and a always eventful night at Carver Hawkeye Arena. And unfortunately, Chad Leistikow, our guest joining us right now, another heartbreaking night for this Iowa basketball team. First and foremost, thank you for joining us. I always appreciate when you do that. There's no lack of effort for this Iowa basketball team. I think that showed again last night, just not enough to get over the hump at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Yeah, I mean, this team has become mostly Peyton Sanford and Josh Dix, and they both need to be on for Iowa to have a chance. And they both were on Wednesday night. I mean, they combined for 44 points. If you recall, they combined for 46 in the win at Rutgers, the only win they've had post Owen Freeman surgery. So, Iowa got everything it needed for the most part. It had its 2 best players on. But it's still not enough. You can tell that Evan Bronze had a career night for him, at least as a Hawkeye, and it still wasn't enough. That's just kind of where this team is right now. And you mentioned the effort, Matt. I mean, I've tweeted that a few times too. Like, this team's really giving it all, and they are. I mean, like, if you're at the games, like Josh Dix is dragging himself up the court. Peyton Sanford's playing to exhaustion. And I know there's a segment of fans because I've seen the replies. It's like, who cares? It's about winning. But I think if you're, a fan or whoever that appreciates the players themselves on the team, you want them to win just because you know how hard they've worked. They've stuck with it. They haven't mailed this season in. No, that's not, you don't get a participation trophy in the Big Ten, but I think what struck me last night in particular is just how emotionally distraught and devastated Peyton Sanford was at the end of that game. He laid down on the ground. He missed that layup with under a minute to go that would have tied it. And how did it not go in? It's like he's just in disbelief, like how this senior year has happened for him. I mean, he came back to lead this team to the NCAA tournament. And, he played great last night. 25 points. It's the second most he's had all year. And still not enough. It's just got to be so frustrating for that team. And, they're shorthanded. But, they've been blown out several times too. There's flaws, obviously, in this team. But at the same time, it's like, they just haven't really caught too many breaks this year. And, with the injuries and balls rolling off the rim and whatnot. So, you feel for them. They dropped to 5-10 in Big Ten play, and now they're really in danger of missing the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second as well. But when you look at that game, and you talk about the effort, they're down 8 at halftime, I think, something like that. They were down. They got down throughout the second half, and like they always, I shouldn't say always do, because there's some games they don't battle back. But they gritty effort to get back. I think we're still under review about some call at Carver Hawkeye, which I'm sure you appreciated, being on deadline and everything else. It seemed like we had a delay after a delay after delay, but they get close. And you mentioned Peyton doesn't get the layup to fall. Josh had a good look for a layup. And it just seems like that's the way this season's kind of gone. It's a nice, almost like a representation of this season, because they've been close and little plays like that. And I don't know how they don't go in. I mean, it's not like they flat out bricked layups. They just were halfway down and curled back up. So I think the effort was there. And talk about that, because they did get maybe a few calls late. I mean, the ball was on the hand, off the hand, all those kind of things. So it seemed like, man, maybe this is the game. This is the game where they get a few things to go their way, and then they just don't get the shot at the end to go down.
Yeah, and as a sports writer, you're thinking of, as the game's winding down in the last minute, you think about, how am I going to frame this? What am I going to write about? And what struck me in the moment was all the close reviews that did go Iowa's way. I mean, I thought the 3-pointer was going to stand, that would have put Oregon up 5 and essentially put the game away. I mean, you never know, obviously, but especially after we saw the Iowa women against Ohio State. But they get that review benefit, and it was so close. Like, I probably would have kept the call on the floor. I mean, they cycled through, like, I don't know if they showed it on TV, but they cycled, like, how there's 3 refs and 2 will look at the monitor. It's like these 2 would look at it. They'd wave the other guy in, and then, hey, look at this, look at this. They'd wave the other guy in, and then the other guy would leave. And they kept doing it. It was like they just kept rotating. Like, they kept going through, like, multiple rotations at a time. And finally, they gave Iowa the ball. Like, it was a huge play. It's like a turnover in football. Like, it goes from a 5-point game to a 2-point game and Iowa ball. And then they get the call on the out of bounds deflection real late. So they get one more shot to win. They get the ball in Josh Dix's hands, who's and don't forget the turnover too, the full court press turnover where the Oregon guy kind of slid his foot just barely out of bounds. The official was right on it. It was a good call, but it was like, the breaks are finally coming Iowa's way. But then, 2 layups miss out, rim out, and Josh Dix, who's been money from that spot all year, just, can't quite get it over. What's his name's Nate Biddle's fingertips, gets deflected. And even then, Evan Braun's heady play catches the ball in midair and tries to flick it toward the basket. I think it would have counted. They didn't give him a shot attempt in the box score, really? But I think it would have counted had it gone. And that would have forced overtime. So, that was kind of my narrative. It was like, it's like the opposite of it wasn't a fair catch, because Iowa got like every review call, but still didn't work.
Talk about Evan Braun's, because with Owen being out for the year, they're looking for different bigs to step up. And that's a kid that he's an Iowa City West grad, I think, and loves the University of Iowa. And played his butt off. That's a cool story. And it stinks because that's a great story. And if they win, that's really what we're running with. And sometimes great stories get lost in losses. He was really good last night, and that had to bring a smile not just to his team and his coaching staff, but anybody who knows the young man, because everything I've heard about Evan Braun's is he's that ultimate team guy that you love to have on your team.
Yeah, as he was kind of cooking last night, as the kids say, like I was kind of looking up his career, and he started 30 games at Belmont 2 years ago. I mean, obviously it's in the MVC. He grew up in Iowa City. He played with Patrick McCaffrey, and he even said last night, the University of Iowa is my dream school. I've always wanted to play here. He's got some athleticism, and it's crazy that last year his stats for the season were 5 for 5 from the field, 10 points. And he played 63 minutes all last year. Like, he transferred his senior year, comes here for a team that didn't even make the NCAA tournament. plays, an average of 2 minutes per game. And I think a lot of that was against Purdue. They had Zach Edey, like they needed somebody in there that could do something. Just eat fouls or whatever. But anyway, and then his career high at Iowa before last night was 6. And he ends up with 15 points, 4 for 4 shooting, 7 of 9 from the floor, plays the entire last 14:40 of the game. You're right. Like my colleague Tyler Tashman and I, we're talking going to the locker room. It was like, yeah, do you want to write about bronze? Should I write about bronze? And we're like, it ended up being the third thought in my 4 thoughts column. It is an afterthought in some ways, unfortunately, but it is he was asked about it, and he was disappointed. Obviously, he was clearly disappointed, but I know it meant a lot to him to be able to have a game like this because what would you do? You transfer here. This is the end of your college career. You're not playing at all, and then it's got to be frustrating. And he said, yeah, it's been hard to keep my confidence, when I just don't play. And, I think for what it's worth, what's Iowa got left? 5 games in the Big Ten season. Like, I feel like Evan Braun should start from here on out. I think he earned that last night. He gives Iowa an athletic presence in the middle. He fouls a lot sometimes, but heck, go with it and see what he can do. It was a cool story. Iowa City West kid. And, why not have some good stories here going out? He's going to give his all because this is it for him. Good story, man. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and I want to go back to another thing you mentioned, and then we got to talk big picture too as well. But I want to talk a little bit about Peyton Sandfort because a couple different things. One, if you follow Chad on X, which you should, and if you're not, shame on you, you showed that he's in the next 100 points that he scores, he's going to go from being I'm going to mess it up, 19th all time to 10th all time, or 16th all time to 10th all time, or whatever it may be. But you mentioned him laying down on the floor, and we saw that last year as well. We saw he's an emotional man. He gets a chance to do a lot of cool things record book wise. I know it's not going the way he wants to on the actual court itself, wins and losses, but talk about what you saw after the game after that from him, because I've seen that before. It was a game last year. I want to say, man, I'm trying to think which game it was that they lost late and he missed a shot late. Maybe it was Ohio State or something like that. But he does get emotional. That kid wears Iowa basketball and the Hawkeyes on his sleeve each and every night, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think that's I think if you follow this team, that definitely stands out. He is like the truest, one of the truest Hawkeyes. I think you could portray. He grew up in Iowa, went to Waukee, came here, just loves the Hawks. He's playing with his brother. He came back here, I was told he turned down potentially, who knows what's true, potentially, $800,000 ish, at the next level, and to come back for much less and play with his brother and take his home state team to the NCAA tournament. So yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking in that sense that, his career may not even have a postseason. We're at that point. Iowa is in 15th place out of 18 and 15 make the tournament as of right now. And a team behind them is coming to Carver on Saturday. So if they lose that game, that's big trouble. But yeah, you mentioned the history. Peyton's at 1,492 points now in his career. That's 19th all time in Iowa. He's a scorer, but he could climb pretty quick. He's less than 100 points from 12th. Adam Haluska is at 1,578. He can pass Jeff Horner, Peter Jock, Greg Bruner, Don Nelson, Andre Woolridge, Dean Oliver, Adam Haluska, and then the other two. I think he could get there. If Iowa even gets into the Big Ten tournament, because that would give him 6-7 games. Jess Settles, our friend, is 11th at 16-11. So that's 120 points. Could he do that in 7 games? Sure, of course he could. And then after that's Matt Gaten's in 10th. So not that might take a little bit more of a run, but who knows if Iowa gets in the NIT, something like that, he could do it. So, he's had a really nice Iowa career. It's just a shame that barring something miraculous, it's just going to end with a little bit of disappointment, a lot of disappointment.
Man, those names you just mentioned, like you took me down my childhood with some of those. We had Jess on Monday, and see if he can catch the old fella. Jess, that's not fair because Jess probably had like 1,000 games in his career, something like that, when he played for that decade. So he has that advantage. What was the vibe afterwards? Because I've covered the Iowa Hawkeyes a lot. I've been in that room. I've seen angry Fran. I've been yelled at by Fran. I like Fran. Fran has been very nice to me, so I don't want to frame it like he just rages at us all the time. But I've been scolded by Fran. Everybody has. I did see some of the press conference. I didn't see all of it. What's the vibe in that room? I know he's proud of those guys and their effort, but what's the vibe you get from the post game after another tough loss for the Hawkeyes?
I think it's just a coach that just wants something good to happen for his team. He's always been a guy that backs his players to a fault. He'll never, ever throw it. He's never in 15 years thrown a single player under the bus that I can remember. And when I researched the story, we're probably going to talk about same thing. Like, yeah, that's one thing that certain fans just love about Fran. He's always had his players back. And so I think he just wants – that's the vibe I get, is that he really wants them to have success for them. I don't think he is like thinking about his own future, anything like that. He just cares about the guys there. And I genuinely think that's true. And so that's kind of the vibe. I think there's just sort of a disappointment, but also a pride that he takes as a coach. And I know, again, getting back to the participation trophies comment I made, like, I get it. This is Big Ten basketball. Like, we're not just patting you on the back for trying hard. But at the same time, I think that's the vibe, is like he's seeing, them prepare and do the scouting reports and give everything they have in these games like they're playing for, a Big Ten championship. And they're playing basically right now to try to get like a win that makes them feel good, for many of them toward the very end of their careers. So I think that's the vibe that I feel.
Yeah. Let's talk about the article, because if anybody missed it, Chad, was it Monday?
Monday morning came out. It was in, for those that actually get the hard copy of the paper, it was in Wednesday's paper. But yeah.
Gotcha. But it came out on Monday, and people can check it out. What, Hawkeye Central? Is that the place to go and check it out?
Come on, Matt. Hawk Central.
I know.
Let's get it right.
I get the link on Twitter. I click it and I'm in. It's funny because I sent it to a lot of people, and I got several people back that was like, "Oh, there's a stupid paywall." Yeah, well, pay for it. It's really good content. Read the article. It's awesome stuff, and continue to do that, because that's how you keep up on the Hawkeyes. Stop being that person. So anyways, really good article laying out the decision that Beth Getz has in front of her, I should say, and what you do with Fran, not do with Fran. Kind of talk about, I don't want to give everything away. Go read the article, but your thought process in writing it, I thought it was extremely well done. And it's not an easy decision. I think everybody thinks, oh, well, this is simple. We do this or we do that. It's really an interesting thought process that Beth has to go through.
Yeah, and I'm really happy with how it came out, because it took a long time. It took weeks, actually, of like interviews with anybody you can think of. I mean, none of them are quoted in the story, but like boosters, people within the university that are in the know, that type of thing. I don't mind saying that I even talked to Fran himself a little bit for this, just to get background and understand kind of where he's coming from. Again, just sort of keep going. Former players, boosters. I can't remember if I said that, but just like fans. What are you feeling? And so it's extremely complicated. It's extremely complicated. I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize when they think about this is the payroll for Iowa is very low in the Big Ten. One person told me bottom 3. One person said bottom 5. One person said bottom 1. I went with bottom 5 in the story to be safe. And it's just the reality. I mean, but at the same time, so first of all, if you bring in a new coach, is that going to change? Like, are you going to suddenly have, oh, okay, it's Darian DeVries. Like, here's $1 million, Swarm, go at it, go have it. And then we need another $1 million next year. Like, it's not like you don't know what's going to happen and Beth has to figure that out. Like, if I bring in, first of all, if I get rid of Fran, it's a $4.2 million buyout-ish. If I hire a coach from another school, and I went through I went through one in the story, but there's another one that I researched. The buyouts at other schools are in the $4 to $5 to $6 million range. So, add that up, you're close to $10 million already just to make a move, and then you still got to pay the coach, and then you still have to attract the coach here. Like, hey, a coach isn't going to come here unless you hire someone real low level that just wants this job, if he knows he's not going to have money to pay a roster, because that's the name of the game anymore, And so there's a lot of calculus that Beth has to do, not to mention you may be firing. I mean, you would, if you do choose to do something, you'd be firing Iowa's winningest coach. And we know how that went. Among some fans still wish Tom Davis was the coach, like in 1998, 99. I mean, Iowa got rid of its winningest coach. The program, generally speaking, went downhill for the next 10 to 12 years. It just did. And it happens a lot. You'll like this, Matt. I put in my story, and I don't mind sharing this because we can have a laugh over this. The Chicago Bears in 2012 fired Lovie Smith after a 10-6 season. They thought they could do better. Lovie went to a Super Bowl, went to 2 NFC Championships games, had a good defense.
How's it going right now?
Yeah, they're on their 5th coach since. Now, finally, Ben Johnson's going to bring them to prosperity, but it took a while.
Yeah, Super Bowl.
No, I'm just saying, 4 absolutely failures of coaches. And you can go through examples in college basketball and find this time and time again. Yes, you can find examples of where it worked. There are fewer of those examples, but it's hard. I mean, Fran has been a really successful coach. If you look at it, 11 upper division finishes in 12 years. Only one other team in the Big Ten has done that. That's Michigan State with Tom Izzo. One other team. And there's no banners for upper half to finishes. I know I got that reply to me too. Someone sent me a banner of 11 upper half. It was kind of funny. I agree. but you've been competitive, but you've also can't ignore the empty seats. That's the biggest thing. You can't ignore that. And Beth has to she knows, I mean, obviously she knows that. She's at every game. Mm-hmm. So it's a complex decision. And I do think NIL is a major piece of this. And how do you solve that? It would have to probably be, I don't know. That's the hardest part of this for Beth, I think, because you're not going to be able to get a good coach in here if you don't have if you can't pay the roster. And I get rev sharing is coming, but still, if Iowa devotes, let's say, $2.5 million to basketball out of it, because football is going to get 14, 15 of the 20. Everyone else is going to have 2.5 too, plus whatever they have in NIL. So it's like, okay, now UCLA has 10.5 and Iowa has 3.5. It's still not a fair fight. So it's difficult. It's a difficult spot that she's in. I don't think it's an easy decision.
No, and it's funny because I think the emotional side of it for most people is that what have you done for me lately? There is that Sweet 16 out there, Chad, that hasn't happened. And I think people, that's what, if Fran would have made one run, we had Jess Settles on Monday. We talked about Tom Izzo, and he talked about how he started his freshman year was the last year for Chad Leistikow. And he saw Tom Izzo come in and he didn't set the world on fire. And he finally got the Flintstones. And then after he got the Flintstones, they started rolling. And it's amazing when you make it to a Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, how you get over that hump. Matt Painter recently getting over that hump, doing that as well. Fran just hadn't done that. And if that happened, it's kind of funny how maybe the narrative this goes down. But with that being said, you mentioned the empty seats. And you're talking to a guy that grew up with probably Iowa basketball is my number one love. I loved Iowa basketball, and I knew it was going to be packed. I knew they were going to be rolling. I knew everything was going to go well, and that's not the case. It's frustrating, I'm sure, as you know, to go to games and see. Beth has to see that. Is it as simple, I guess my question is, as a coaching change solves that? Is that the thought process that if they go to Darren DeVries, say next year, they go from having 5,000 people there to having 15,000 people there?
Again, that's a really difficult thing. And I grew up in the 80s here and went to a ton of games in the 90s. Started covering the team around then too. So I've been around it my whole life and definitely remember those. I know it's a long time ago now, but I mean, here's some of the actual butts and seats numbers from games this year. I mean, Texas A&M Commerce 26.95, Southern 27.19, South Dakota 29.51, Rider 31.46, Minnesota. Where is that?
It's a Big Ten rival.
28.77.
That's a Big Ten rival, and they had
19%.
28. Wow.
Yeah, 19%. So and then you look at the two biggest games of the year, or two highest totals. I mean, Iowa State, which had brought all of its own fans. I mean, like, it was louder when Iowa State did something well, it seemed like. And same with Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin brought a lot of fans here too. So, I mean, and that created kind of uncomfortable optics, like it's it's too bad. And I think what you said about the postseason success, I mean, it's sort of, you have to unpack that too if you're Beth, because do you give Fran credit for getting to 7 NCAA tournaments and he should have gotten to an 8th, or do you punish him for when I say 8th, I mean the COVID year. They would have been a 5 seed probably, the NCAAs that year. Or do you kind of hold it against him that he hasn't gotten to the Sweet 16, which is the fans' biggest kind of gripe, that they've never gotten to that second weekend under Fran, and they've had good teams. I mean, the three most prominent teams, the Utah year, they were number 3 in the country and 10-1 in the Big Ten, and ended up being a 7 seed. And, got blown out by Villanova, I think, in the second round. 2021 COVID year, or the empty gym year. It's a shame that Fran didn't get to benefit, or the team didn't get to benefit from fans in the seats Luka Garza's senior year. I mean, that's unfortunate. And then, of course, I think the biggest disappointment to me was going from a Big Ten championship when you had Keegan Murray. And it was unfortunate. I mean, 4 days later, on a morning after you play 4 games in Indianapolis, you're playing a Thursday morning NCAA tournament game in Buffalo, New York. And, you just had a bad game and you lost to 12th seed of Richmond by 3. Because that bracket was there for the taking. I think it was Providence and South Dakota State was the other matchup. I mean, they could have won those games. So, and they went to overtime against Tennessee in 2019.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that comeback. I mean, they were down 25 or 26. Your man Nicholas Baer was part of that comeback. Your man Joe Wieskamp was part of that comeback.
Got a lot of man crushes. I know
they keep coming. Yeah, Brock Hart. No. I'm sure Brock Harding probably had something to do with it.
In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of that's sort of, and I'm rambling here, but it's like,
or look
it's
at
hard.
Oregon,
It's hard to get it. Yeah, it's hard to get excited. Like, if you feel like you're not going to do anything in the postseason anyway, during the season.
You look at that Oregon game where you have Iowa playing them to go to the Sweet 16, and they didn't have to play because I can't remember who they were supposed to play, but they got knocked out for COVID.
VCU,
So
VCU,
it was,
I believe.
Yeah, it was already probably a bad matchup when it came to Oregon to begin with, but then also the fact that they didn't have to play a game, so they're rested and ready to go. There's been some unfortunate some unluck when it comes to Iowa basketball in the postseason. Chad Leistikow joins us right now. We'll wrap things up here in just a second. A couple more for you. You talked about money, and obviously it's got to be added to keep up with the rest of the of college basketball. But if you start over with a new head coach, you're probably, I don't want to say starting over with a roster, but you're going to have to rebuild a roster, which means you're probably going to have to go shopping even more than you would if you had people in house and were just making sure they were good and all that kind of stuff. Does that factor into some of this, that if there is complete changes, then it's going to probably be a pricey rebuild of a roster probably?
So one of the things that Beth Getz has to kind of figure out is, if I fire Fran, does this roster lose Price Sanford, Josh Dix, Owen Freeman? If I keep him, do they stay? Do they go? Like, there's a lot of calculus that maybe she can do, maybe she can't. Does she? Do they stay with a new coach? Like a Darian DeVries, for example. Like, Price Sanford played with Tucker DeVries at Waukee High School. They won a state championship together. Price was young, but they know each other. They're familiar. Maybe is that a benefit? There's a lot that she has to process here, and then what complicates it more is Fran has the highest ranked recruit he's ever had coming in Joshua Lewis out of Tampa. Obviously there was some money promises there, and I don't know how much, but is that fulfillable? Is that a factor? Does Fran have guys coming in that kind of he can get back at it? Does she wait a year? So it's I don't know. It is a layered decision, a complex decision, and I don't think, I can't remember if I said this before, but I don't think Fran. I know Fran doesn't want to retire. He doesn't want to stop coaching, so he's got that coaching fire still. I know people think he's checked out, but I do not believe that to be the case. So complex, difficult, uncomfortable in some ways. You just don't want to let it get to the rock bottom, I guess. And so we'll see. We'll see what she does.
Two more for you. Chad Leistikow joining us right now. Boy, back in college, I wanted to date a lot of girls. They just didn't want to date me. We talk about, hold on, I'll get there. We talk about Iowa wanting maybe a Darren DeVries, but does Darren DeVries want to come to Iowa? And I don't know if you know that, but that's the vibe, is everyone is just, it's common knowledge that if Iowa moves on from Fran, Darren DeVries is the top choice. Have you heard anything, or do you know anything, or is that a safe assumption, or is it just, kind of guesswork putting things together? Sorry that I had to start the question with my lack of love life in college.
Mercy.
But you know what I mean? It takes two to tango. If Iowa fans can want Darren DeVries all they want, possibly, but Darren wants to have to come back to Iowa, I think is the easiest way to ask a very goofily asked question, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so I got a hold of DeVries' contract at West Virginia. He's making about $2.8 million a year right now. Fran is due to make $3.5 next year, so presumably Iowa could pay a coach more than West Virginia could. And obviously Darian is from Applington, Iowa. His brother Jared DeVries, is a very former Detroit Lion. Former.
Wearing this just for you. Wear the sweatshirt just for you.
Former Hawkeye. Great. He's got. Tucker DeVries has another year, of eligibility, it seems like, as long as he gets the medical. So there's a lot of attractive stuff, I'm sure, on Darian's end. That said, that's something that Beth Getz needs to figure out also. If she has and I know she will. Like she's got good business. Like it's not like she's just, okay, you're fired. Now let's start. Like who should we get? I think she's going to have I know she has a short list of candidates. Don't know who's on it, but she will have done her homework if she does make a move.
All right, last one for you, Chad Leistikow. Wrapping up with him, we appreciate your time. I know you're really busy, especially these days. You look at a timeline, and you just kind of mentioned it. Ducks have to be put in a row now. Kind of talk about a timeline. I had a buddy ask me yesterday, like, man, there's 5 games left in the Iowa season. Is it like after that last game you move on, or is it wait to see what happens with an NIT? Let's say Iowa makes the Big Ten tournament, goes to the Big Ten tournament, loses in the first game or so, but they're still in for the NIT. What's the timeline, I guess, for when a decision, I'm not saying a firing or anything like that, but when a decision gets made?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, without, we haven't gotten anything from Beth Getz on the record on that. I imagine if there is a new coach or two that she's eyeing, I mean, that coach is probably still playing somewhere for a while. I don't know I don't think you let Fran twist in the wind too long. I think one way or another, she's probably going to address it. And she'll be asked to address it, just a matter of whether she does or not. And so I don't think there's going to be any timeline. I think there's I feel like whatever is the right thing to do for her, it's going to happen. So, there's still, let's do the math here. Iowa's 14-12. They got 5 games left. They got Washington coming to Carver on Saturday, 3 p.m. They need that. I mean, they're going to need that win to get to the Big Ten tournament at minimum. That would get them to 15 wins. Let's say they lose the other 4. That's 15 and 16. So, probably not postseason unless they do some – I don't know. I just can't imagine Iowa's going to pay money to play in the CBI or whatever when it's trying to save, potentially $10 million. So I feel like they need 2 more wins in these last 5 if they want to extend their life of the season. That would get them to 16 and 15. I know it's silly, but you could extend your season for maybe a couple weeks if you could win 2 more games here, because you get to the Big Ten tournament and you're playing in like a 11-14 game. Maybe you win that game, and maybe you have a winning record, and maybe you go play in the NIT. It could be a while. Or it could be over on March 9th at Nebraska. That might be it. So I think the timeline is kind of just dependent on all that.
Yeah, and also you look at it too. Let's say Iowa is done early and they make a decision. It doesn't mean they can go get another coach, because the said coach that we talked about is probably playing postseason basketball for a few more weeks. So you can't really hurry on that end when other things are coming. I think, though, quickness would be good when it comes to roster retention. If you can make a quick turn and let kids know and let these people know that are going to go to the portal that, hey, this is the situation in Iowa City if you want to stay and build and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate you, buddy. I know you got a lot to get to. Tell people how they can read the article, because it was fantastically done, and I don't say that because I'm kissing up. You did a great job with it. So how can people check out that article and your work in general?
Hawkcentral.com is where you can find it. Go in the men's hoops tab. If you don't see it there, just search, Leistikow, Fran McCaffrey, you'll find it. I'll go through my X feed at Chad Leistikow, just how it sounds, right? I have a subscription already, obviously, to my own work, but I believe that you can probably find a pretty good deal, and then at the most, it's like $99 for the year, so like maybe like $8 a month. So it's not too bad if you're. I mean, I understand that money's tight for a lot of people out there. I totally get it, but if you feel inclined, feel free to subscribe, because a lot of I usually put my best stuff. Keep that for our subscribers, because that's it's important to us to have that base, and that's what helps me keep doing what I'm doing. So
if you're here in the Quad Cities, this is what I always say. He's the most locked in Hawkeye beat writer along with Tom Kakert, but he's just better looking than Tom Kakert, and that makes all the difference in the world. You know what I mean? It makes all the difference in the world. Chad, I know you got to go.
I'd shot at Tommy right out at the end here.
Anytime I can take a shot at that guy, I always do. Chad, be good. We'll talk to you real soon.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate you doing that. Is Chad Leistikow, fantastic work covering the Iowa basketball team. So check out his work. And of course, it will be an interesting 2-3 weeks and what happens in Iowa City with the future of the Iowa men's basketball program. We'll talk a lot about it right here on Off the Air. Well, coming up on Off the Air, we'll go from the college hardwood to the high school hardwood. The Rock Island Rocks with an impressive victory to end Western Big Six play on Tuesday night, knocking off state-ranked Quincy. Marc Polite, the head coach of the Rocks, will join us right after this on OTA on a Thursday.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. The high school basketball season winding down, the postseason just getting warmed up, and it promises to be a great postseason on both sides of the river, especially when it comes to the teams from the Western Big Six. And we're joined now by Marc Polite, head basketball coach at Rock Island High School. And coach, I gotta tell you, you weren't the first high school coach I had on the show, but you're the first guy to come on twice. That's gotta be something, doesn't it?
I know, right? That's what I was thinking about that earlier when you asked me. I said, man, I must be moving up the list.
There you go.
I'll take it.
Anytime you knock off one of the best teams in the state, we got to talk. And you guys are one of the best teams in the state. So I don't want to put it in that framing, but what happened with you guys on Tuesday night to end the Western Big Six season with the champions coming to town in Quincy and to knock them off and hand them their first Western Big Six loss? What did that mean to you guys, your program, and your team?
Well, it's huge for us. I mean, I felt like it was we've been knocking on that door, for a while, and I felt like the first time when we played them down there, we played them really well. It was a close game throughout. We had a stretch there in the second quarter where they kind of got some distance, got it to about 8 or 9 points, and then they were able to kind of maintain that for the rest of the game. But I felt like we made a lot of just mental errors, just not being sharp. And so coming back to our place, we felt like, if we can eliminate some of those things, let's see where we're at. And I felt like we got off to a really good start. And, it's huge for our program, to be able to beat a team like Quincy, who's been ranked in the top 3 in the state pretty much the whole entire season. I think they were preseason number 1. So to be able to beat a team like that with all the talent, experience, great coaching that they have shows that we're trending in the right direction.
Coach, young people. and confidence is a big deal.
Yes, it is.
To get a victory like that right before the postseason has to help prove to the guys that they are one of the better teams, not just in this area, but in the state. Talk about confidence with young people, and it's got to help at this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to pride ourselves on consistency, and I can say all these things so I'm blue in the face, but what really penetrates is how they feel. And we understand that as a coaching staff, and we know that it's our job and responsibility to kind of point them in the right direction, but they're the ones that gotta go. And so I thought this was a big step. We've been pushing, we've been getting a little healthier. We hit a stretch there into January, early February, where we were just dealing with, we don't play a lot of guys. And when you have guys go down, it really changes a lot about what we do. And getting back healthy again, and then being able to go out and play and execute a specific game plan, I think really gives our guys the confidence to know that we can go out and beat anybody. As long as we do what we do, don't try to do what you can't do. And I think last night was really a focused game plan that we needed to execute to beat a team as quality and as good as Quincy is.
Coach, I don't want to say you snuck up on people this year because you're Rock Island and nobody,
Yeah.
you don't sneak up on anybody, but we talked the first time you came on and it was, the marquee names weren't there that we're used to. You lost a lot of names from
Yep.
last year. There's no more flying under the radar, even if you were, which I don't know if you actually were.
Yeah.
But look,
Right.
talk about this team now, because this isn't a fluke. This isn't something that you guys continue to put good game after good game together, and it's come together nicely. Talk about that type of team, because you love as a coach the journey, and I think the journey this season has been pretty fun for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a good spirited group. I mean, I'm a coach that keeps it honest, and you have certain groups, certain years where it's just not the same, and you try to find ways to love them. You try to find ways to get the most out of them. And not that I've had a lot of those, but there's certain years where you're just like, man, we're just trying to figure out chemistry and those type of things. This group is the exact opposite. I mean, they are fun to be around. They are lively. They are almost too much fun sometimes. But I think that spirit that they have really has allowed them to gel. And I think when you ask what makes us who we are, I think it's our chemistry. We have skilled players who don't mind sharing, don't mind sacrificing. And if you have a group that's got some talent, that's tough, that will do those types of things, I think you're gonna win some games. And so, and we've had some guys emerge. I mean, Lawson Zulu has gone from being a sophomore young point guard last year that kind of had his moments to a guy that's one of the best players in the Western Big Six. And, we have had some other guys too. Ben Go, who came off the bench for us last year and played kind of that sixth man role, is now emerging and, averaging 15 points a game and 4 or 5 rebounds and, and playing some high level basketball. And we have a sophomore, Devin Marshall, who last year I thought at the end of the year wasn't sure how much he's going to help us. And he's averaging 13, 14 points a game in the Western Big Six and has really just put a lot of work in on his body and on his skills and all those things. So it's a fun group to coach and they've really taken a hold of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And that's what makes it even more worthwhile.
Coach, the Western Big Six is one of the best conferences in the state. I say it all the time. And obviously a state championship here and there with yourselves and Chasen, and then obviously a few years ago, helps give it some limelight that I think it deserves. But, man, look at this year. And you just look at Tuesday night, and you knew it was good. And then you're like, it's not just Quincy, because while they won the conference, Rock Island took care of them. Rock Island and Moline had 2 great basketball games. And last time I was on here, you said, watch out for what Coach Say's doing over at UT. And
I'm telling you.
From your mouth to God's ears, they go to Wharton and they beat Moline on Tuesday night. How good is this conference this year, especially that top half of the conference?
Yeah, that top half. I mean, we have that whole top half, 20 plus, 20 plus wins, which is always a good mark to have, and And Sterling's not too far behind that. They're right about 16. I think they're right around 15, 16, 17 wins playing against a really tough conference. So, it's a testament to kind of where the pendulum is swinging. And we're graduating some seniors this year, but I think there's some good young talent coming up as well that is going to be able to sustain this last few years run that we've had in the conference. And you've heard me say this, like the coaches do a great job, and you cannot walk out there on a Tuesday or a Friday night and not have your guys prepared and not have them locked in, because there's a great chance that one of those teams that you don't think is going to beat you can pop you. And so, and I think all the coaches in the league understand that, and they respect that topic as well. And that's what makes it so good. And, to see the teams ranked like we had, I mean, Quincy was where they were this year. We were ranked. Moline was ranked pretty much the whole entire year. UT was scratching at the door, not in that, maybe that top 10 ranking, but some of those other ones where they go all the way to 25, UT was in the mix as well. It just shows that, it's a really good league. And I think it's going to continue to get better as years goes by.
The future's bright. The postseason is bright, and if you didn't have to play each other the whole time, it could be really bright.
Yeah.
So take me to next week, because Wednesday yourself versus Rock Island, not you. You can't play anymore, Coach. You got no eligibility left.
Thank God.
But I think you and Pekin, and then on the other side, it's Moline and UT do it again. And then the winners play on Friday. Obviously, it's going to be a great week of basketball. In regionals, and it showcases the league. Unfortunate part is only one of you guys can move on to the next level. What will next week be like? And man, it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, absolutely it is. We knew that going into this when the seedings came out, and we're a little disappointed in our seed. We felt like we deserved the number 1 seed. Normal Community ended up getting it, and we had identical records, and we beat Normal Community head to head. And head to head typically is the deciding factor. But we had a few coaches that thought otherwise. I'd love to have a conversation with them, but what's done is done. We've had to move on and kind of accept the fate that we have. But then going into next week, now we know we're gonna have to go into the Hornets' Nest. We're going into Wharton Fieldhouse, and everyone knows the historic rivalry of Rock Island and Moline, and to have to win against Pekin on Wednesday, which is another storied program. They haven't been as good as they've been in the past, but they play a really tough conference. That Mid-Illini Conference is really tough there in Peoria with Metamora and Dunlap and Morton and all those. I mean, they played against good high-level competition. We know that we're going to have to go out and play well. And then to see that UT Moline rematch, I mean, my goodness, like that's going to be great basketball. That's a night you want to see. You get there about 5:30, you're going to get a chance to see 2 really good basketball games back to back. And then obviously that regional title game at Wharton Fieldhouse. I mean, you think about the history behind that and how many regionals were decided, on that floor. It's just amazing, the history and all that stuff. And the Quad City community, they show up to those type of moments. And you think back, all those years where you've had some of those rivalries where it's UT Rock Island or Moline Rock Island in a regional title game, at the field house or at Wharton Fieldhouse. Like it's aligning to be one of those historic kind of nights with 2 high quality teams. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of fun. And these are the moments you live for. Like I always say, like I have coaches that coach throughout the state, and I tell them there's nothing like the Western Big Six. There's nothing like when those big games and those big venues and just the environment overall is just amazing. And we're starting to get our guys prepared for that.
Coach, I can remember a few years ago, and it's probably more than a few years ago because I'm old now, but there was a sectional championship that got moved to Wharton Fieldhouse, and it took me back to my youth when I was young because that place was packed. It was UT Rocky playing at Moline, and the electricity and the environment was top notch. If you love high school basketball, Wednesday and Friday, even if you're not a Moline UT Rocky fan or whatever, go to the field house, go to Wharton Fieldhouse. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great, if you're just a fan of basketball and just seeing our community too, I think there's post COVID, it's like it's so weird now getting opportunities for everybody to get together, and I feel like even though it's been years, these moments are special. And I remember the Quad City community always being a community that loves basketball. I remember glancing in the stands and seeing people from Davenport coming over to watch games and people from, outsiding areas being able to, drive into the Quad Cities to be able to watch games. And, I'm hoping we can start to get that back even more because it's good basketball in this area. And there's going to be some historic moments that are going to continue to be made. And you don't want to be at home when those historic moments can happen. Watching on NFHS and all that stuff is cool, but there's nothing like being in the place, feeling that energy, and seeing those kids going out there and giving their all to be able to come away with some hardware.
Yeah, I tell people, go out, watch the game, and then watch this show the next day, and we'll talk all about it. That's the beauty part of the whole thing.
There you go.
Before I let you go,
you go.
I know you're busy, and I want to let you go, but before I do, talk about what you tell your team this week and how you prepare, because you just mentioned you set the stage beautifully. I felt like I almost listened to what the kids are going to hear this week, because this is an awesome opportunity, and also to enjoy the opportunity, and because these are games that you're going to look back when you're old like you and me and wish you could go do it again.
Yep. I always say as coaches, a lot of times we're messengers, and we got to be able to communicate messages clearly. And sometimes you only get one shot. And, our focus for the rest of this week is going to be on us, getting ready to clean up some things that we need to clean up. We're taking today off for the rest of the week out. We're going to go Thursday, Friday, and then again on Saturday. We're working on us. We're working on some areas, breaking down some film, seeing some areas of weakness. And then when the next week starts, we're starting game prep, and we're focusing on how do we win? What is it going to take to win? What are those strengths and weaknesses of these teams? And then being able to break those things down in a way that we're able to go out and execute it at a high level. And as far as the experience is concerned, they know. These kids have grown up in this area. They were those kids that were sitting in the stands on some of those moments that we've talked about. And that's the beauty of Quad City basketball. Like, you don't just get dropped here as a junior and all of a sudden you're there. It's an environment where you grow up seeing that. You grow up as a third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader, all the way up. When now you're playing Future Rocks, and you're going to the games and running around in your jersey, and then you're a freshman, and then you're going, just to watch with your friends. And then as you get older, now you're the one that's actually on the floor. So as far as the magnitude of it, like, we won't need to talk about that very much. The kids will be ready.
Coach, I appreciate it. You've made my schedule for next week. I'm going to Wharton Fieldhouse on Wednesday night and probably again on a Friday. I appreciate you doing this. Best of luck. Hopefully we can talk again real soon. Maybe a third time on the show.
There we go.
All right.
Time to charm.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.
Great job.
All right. He is Marc Polite, head coach of the Rock Island Rocks. We got a lot more to get to. It's OTA on a Thursday. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. and the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. We've talked a lot of basketball on today's show, and we're going to continue that because a great story developing down in Monmouth College having a fantastic season. The Fighting Scots wrapped up the MWC Conference Championship last night, doing so for the first time since the 2017-2018 season. And one of the guys leading the way for the Fighting Scots is a familiar face in the Moline community and here in the Quad Cities. Kyle Taylor joins us right now. Kyle, you're a junior now at Monmouth. That makes me feel really old. It just seems like yesterday you were rocking and rolling over at Wharton Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I know it. It definitely goes by fast. It makes me even feel a little old too.
I don't want to hear that. If you're old, then I'm old, and your dad's ancient. So let's not date us too much. But first and foremost, congratulations! It's been a fantastic season. Last night, we'll start there. I know you had a share of the conference title going into last night, but I know they tell you to share when you're little, but nobody likes to share. You want that thing outright. What it mean to get that outright conference championship on your own home court down there in Monmouth?
It was awesome. I mean, doing it at home in front of all the students, all the faculty at the school, parents that come to support us for almost every game. It was an awesome experience. The crowd was very loud last night. It was a super fun environment to play in. So, and we talked about all week at practice. We don't want to share nothing. So that felt great to get that win.
No, I'm sure it did. And you talk about that environment because it is a great home court advantage for the Fighting Scots. I've been there in recent years a few times. Talk about that because not every school has that. And you guys have had that, especially this year.
Yeah, I mean, ever since after Christmas break when all the students got back and our team really started to get on a roll, I mean, the football team, baseball team, track team, band, they've been there every single game, student section with themes, and it's really made a fun place for us to play and a difficult place for the other teams to play, which always helps out.
When did you realize, Kyle, that this season could be special or could be a conference championship type season? When did you guys start putting the pieces together to see something like this happening?
Probably right after the New Year. We played a game on New Year's Day where we fought through a lot of adversity and got an overtime win. And then that kind of started a string of things, and we went on the road, won 3-4 games in a row. So it showed that through tough times, like tough circumstances, we were able to stay together and grit it out and do whatever it took to win. So that really shows that it was special to me.
Yeah, and of course it has resulted in that conference championship. What was last night like in that locker room? Because it's you put a lot of hard work in during the season, during the week, all that kind of stuff. And I know there's more work to be done, and we'll talk about that. But talk about that locker room and the celebration with some guys I know you've gotten really close with.
Locker room was amazing after the game. We had a lot of music bumping, very loud, got the cooler out, had a little splash zone with the water. Just really enjoyed all the work we've done so far, and it was great time celebrating with the guys.
That's the best part about this too is so now number one seed in the conference tournament that starts next week. Obviously you can celebrate a little bit, but you got another game this weekend and then more work to be done. How quickly do you guys turn the page and move ahead to what's to come with conference tournament and more postseason after that, hopefully?
Well, we'll be right back at it at practice today. We got number 2 seed in the conference coming in on Saturday, so getting one more game against them to really keep our edge and stay in going into the tournament. I think having a great opponent like that to prepare for only keeps you sharp mentally, so I think that's a really good thing for us.
So, Kyle, obviously a lot of success this season. What is it about this team that makes it successful? Obviously, some good talent on this basketball team. What is it about this version of the Fighting Scots that has made it a conference championship type team?
Like you said, our team is super deep this year. I mean, we've got 6 guys that have scored 20 or more points in a game, and so it brings us a lot of versatility every game. But what takes us to the next level, I think, is our awareness and togetherness as a team. I mean, everybody who plays knows their role. Every night we go out, it's do whatever it takes to win, and not some guys worrying about some other things that aren't as important. So everybody's pulling in the right direction with one main goal, and I think that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Kyle Taylor joining us right now, junior guard down at Monmouth College. The Fighting Scots conference champions, also a former Maroon. And when you go through a process of playing college basketball, you want to find that right spot. You've found that right spot. I think we could both agree down at Monmouth. Look back at that decision. And obviously you had some decisions. What is it about that place that has made it the right spot for you so far?
I would say just the community of Monmouth. I mean, the coaches we have here in our basketball program, I mean, they treat everyone as family. Everybody's super close. And then even the other sports, the other coaches are always talking to you in the facility, whether it's baseball, soccer, football. I mean, everybody in the community just wants the best for each other, and that makes it awesome to be a part of.
No, it's been a lot of fun to watch from up here as well. You are a Moline grad. You're also, if anyone didn't know this, the son of Moline head coach Sean Taylor. He always says you're his second favorite son. He always tells me he likes Corey more than you. But talk about your dad and what he's meant for you in this journey of basketball. We had him on earlier, probably a few weeks ago, and he talked about his favorite player he's gotten to coach is you. Kind of talk about that, because I know you guys got to do a lot of time in the gym. I know you played for him at Moline. What was it like having your dad as a head coach in high school?
It couldn't have been better. It was awesome. I mean, getting to be with him every day, day in, day out, whether it was practice, games, just working out, and then even going home where he just turned it off and it was just dad and we were just hanging out. Like, there was nothing cooler than that. I mean, I probably took it for granted a little bit when I was younger, but now that I look back on it, not many kids get that opportunity, and it was amazing to have.
I think he kind of referenced it's not always easy being the coach's son. I mean, there's some benefits to it and some shooting. You could probably get in a little extra and all that. You spend a lot of time in a gym, but it's not always easy being that coach's kid. How was it for you, and was it something you kind of had to adapt to a little bit along the way?
Probably my first year I played. I mean, it was kind of an up and down season. I was young, sophomore, playing varsity, so there was learning growth experiences that were painful at times, but by the time it was junior, senior year, we had a really good team and we were just playing ball, and so could have beat it.
When you look at your dad, he's won 700 career games, most victories ever in Western Big Six play as well. I don't know what the number is. He's added to it since he broke it. Besides the fact that your dad's really old, what comes into your mind when you hear the milestones that he's accomplished?
Really just passion for the game. I mean, he's been doing it so long. I think it's over 30 some years, and he's got the same fire every year, which is the best part to me. I mean, every day he goes into the gym, he's loving it. He's loving getting to work with, be around the players he has, and build those relationships that I know mean a lot to him. So the passion he has is second to none.
He is a passionate dude. He's a funny guy as well. When it comes to the family, I've seen you play. I know how you can shoot it. I've actually coached your little brother. I don't know if he'd ever admit to that, because I don't know if I helped him or probably put him back a few years as well. But watching him as a freshman at Moline knock down 3 after 3 after 3, I don't know if your old man could shoot it. But I'm going to ask you a very serious question. Who's the best shooter in your family when it comes to the Taylor family?
Someday I hope Corey can take that title, but for right now, I'm not giving that up. I mean, he knows that when we go work out in the summer, he'll be in the gym with me, and he knows who's shooting first because who's making more.
I love it. I love it. Do you really mean that? Do you hope that someday he's a better shooter than you? You don't actually want your little brother to be a better shooter than you, do you?
Maybe when he's in the gym with the other people, but when he's in the gym with me, not at all.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Kyle Taylor joining us right now. Before we let you go, tell people about what's next for the Fighting Scots. I know a big game this weekend. Tell us when that is. If you're a Moline, supporter and you want to make the quick trip down to Monmouth to check out a really high quality basketball game, tell us about Saturday's game and then conference tournament that starts next week as well.
Yeah. So, Saturday we're taking Grinnell College. I think we play at 3:00 at home, and Grinnell's been running the system or whatever they call it for forever, how long, and it'll be a wild game. They'll be pressing, chucking threes all game, so it'll end up in the hundreds, and it'll be a great, loud environment to be in, so I'm excited to play. And they're number 2 team in the conference, so playing against opponent with that strength, it's only going to make you better. And then the 28th, we start the conference tournament, first round. We're not sure who we're playing there yet, but I mean, it's to go to the NCAA tournament, so it's going to be a dogfight the whole 40 minutes, which those are the games you love to play in as a player, so it's going to be awesome.
No, it should be a ton of fun. Do you keep it up on the Maroons as you're down there? I'm assuming you're keeping a close eye on what the old alma mater is doing. Your thoughts on their team this year?
I think they've had a really good season so far. They've got a great group where Trey, Braden really lead them. So as they continue to lead them, hopefully everybody can continue to play well and get a stretch coming up. I mean, they've got a shot to do something special, which is something you never want to take for granted.
No, absolutely. I feel like the coaching could be better. If the coaching was just a little bit better up there, I think and that's all of those knuckles heads, Rangel, Noble, all those guys. I feel like they got to step their game up a little bit, but we'll see if they can do that down the stretch. So, Kyle, I appreciate you doing this. Best of luck the rest of the way, and maybe when you guys make that NCAA tournament, we'll catch up again.
Hey, that would be awesome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. He is Kyle Taylor, former Moline basketball standout, now doing really good things down at Monmouth College. The Fighting Scots are the MWC champions of the regular season. They got one more home game on Saturday before they look towards the conference tournament and then hopefully the NCAA tournament after that. Well, we got much more to get to. You're watching Off the Air on a Thursday. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8255. 81-97 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. Thursday, February 20th. It's been a fun show, to say the least. Really enjoyed my first guest, Chad Leistikow, from the Des Moines Register and the Iowa City Press Citizen. It's an interesting time in Iowa basketball for the men's basketball program. Chad wrote a fantastic article kind of laying out what the future looks like and what the decisions that have to be made are when it comes to Fran McCaffrey, the coaching staff moving forward, what Fran has done in the past and what could happen in the future. Really well done, layered with a lot of information on what Fran has done positive and really a good job with, and then the things that maybe he needs to, or the next coach needs to build on and work on and all that kind of stuff. So fantastic conversation with Chad Leistikow. That was the first hour of the show. If you missed it, go check it out here on YouTube or X if you're watching live on either one of those. Also, you can check it out on the podcasting platforms as well. Also, it was great to catch up with Marc Polite. It really is an interesting time of the season, a great time of the season for high school basketball. But next week, the regional at Moline has United Township, Moline, and Rock Ridge all there along with Pekin. And it's unfortunate a little bit because all three teams are playing high-quality basketball. Only one of them can win a regional. The good news for the Quad City fans is you guys can get out to Wharton Fieldhouse next Wednesday and next Friday and most likely check out a lot of really good basketball. So, of course, Rock Island knocked off Quincy this past week. So, we had Marc Polite on to talk about that and a whole bunch more looking ahead to the future. Check out Marc Polite as well. Then we just wrapped up with Kyle Taylor, son of Sean Taylor, but more importantly, way more importantly, a standout guard junior at Monmouth College. The Fighting Scots just wrapped up a conference championship last night. So check out that interview if you missed it as well. We thank all three of those guys for coming on to the show today. Also, earlier this week, yesterday, we had Andrew Lehman on to make the announcement that the Zach Brown Band is coming to be concerts on the course on Sunday during the John Deere Classic week. So if you missed Andrew Lehman yesterday, go check that out. Taylor Jackson on as well yesterday. So a lot of good stuff on Wednesday's show. Jess Settles and Pat Anger were both on Monday, and it's been a really good week. Glenn Cook was on Tuesday as well. So check out all of the shows if you missed them this past week. Got one more show coming up for you tomorrow. Excited about that one. It's a big night of high school girls basketball, a lot of regional action, regional championships on the line. We'll catch up with a couple coaches tomorrow and talk to them about hopefully some good times and some regional championships tonight on the high school hardwood. That and several more things to get to tomorrow, a Friday edition of Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. If you aren't subscribed to YouTube, please do that as well. And we appreciate everyone supporting the show so far. One more big show to get to tomorrow, and then that weekend is finally here. That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow on Off the Air.